Dun-dun-dun-dun. Dun-dun-dun-dun. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you're all enjoying your evening. Welcome to Roma Theory. A few things to discuss about today, a lot related to our midfield, because we've got Frattesi back on track, and there are also some ideas, some initial, maybe confrontations. I wouldn't necessarily call them confrontation and talks, but some initial planning, again, maybe, potentially, on Dani Ceballos from Real Madrid. So yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about these two players today. Two players which Roma is interested in. One, obviously, being a big priority and having been a big priority since this summer. You know, Frattesi was basically done. It was a done deal. Let's be very honest with each other. It was a done deal. I don't know how it collapsed. And, you know, thinking about it, re-looking at the situation, you ask yourself how it collapsed. Because we literally had Frattesi in her palm. We had him in her fist. But then something collapsed. And to be fair, I'm blaming two reasons for the collapse of that deal. I am blaming Sassuolo's arrogance, because for a team like Sassuolo, they just feel like they've got element power to ask as much money as they want, and that's not how it works. But I'm also blaming the fact that I think if we would have gotten Frattesi, then players like Wijnaldum would have never come. And therefore, spending a lot of money on Frattesi could have potentially kind of shifted the equilibrium of financial fair play. Because otherwise, you really cannot explain to yourself how the deal collapsed. Look, I'm going to give my opinion on Frattesi because I think it's a player which, as I said before, we wanted it. We were basically having it. But then, at a certain point, it collapsed. My opinions on it. I mean, if you've been an OG subscriber, I mean, if you've been here around since the summer, you probably know that I was skeptical when it comes to Frattesi. I was not convinced at all. Let me know if you remember this. I wasn't convinced because, you know, to be fair, I still think this. I'm more convinced, but I'm still a bit... Because when you've got a player in your own academy squad and then you sell him to get other players in, you've made the decision. You've made the decision to get him out of your club. You've made that decision. You know, you've gotten money from that decision, but you've made that decision. You cannot, 2 years after coming up with this decision, you cannot go up. Actually though, I actually want him back. You can't do that because now that you've given him away, he's worth 4 times what he was worth when you decided to make him depart. If you see what I mean. And you know, if he was a casual player, I would have gone, okay, if he's a better player, spend the money. But it doesn't make sense for any club, but I'm speaking on the behalf of Roma here. It doesn't make sense that 3 years ago we had this guy in our own training ground because the youth trains in the same place as the first squad. So it's unbelievable to think that he was in our training ground 2 years ago, and 2 years after we want him back for 30 million. I'm sorry, but no, that is just so poor. Poor investments. If you've made the decision you want him out, you don't, even if he's a good player, you don't then go, oh, but I want him back. Because instead of spending the 30 million, you could go, well, actually, if I was a bit more intelligent, I would have actually kept him in my team so that I could easily just promote him to the first squad and not spend 30 million on him. Because if there's one thing which we understood from this summer, is that Sassuolo are not going to let discounts happen. Look, I would have understood Sassuolo having a discount if they were going to get relegated. because then they had to sell. They were forced to sell. But Sassuolo aren't going to get relegated. So Sassuolo has actually improved from the first part of the season. They will want to keep as many players as possible, and the few players that they'll sell, they're going to ask a lot of money from it. And that is where my doubts come in. Do we really, really, deep down in our hearts, do we really want to spend 30 million euros for a player which 2 years ago we decided to let go from our team? That is just incredible dismantling of life. That's just, I don't know, and that's where my doubts are. Because if it wasn't for this, he's a great player. He's a great player. He's a great player who will have a great future in any team, and will also have a great future in the Italian national team. And however, that's the reason why I wasn't convinced. There were other reasons why I wasn't convinced, but then actually reading, if there were rumors saying that he was a Lazio fan, and you don't want to get a Lazio fan and put him in your team, because then look what happens. We had a Lazio fan in our team, a presumably Lazio fan in our team, which has always disguised himself as a Roma fan, and now look, he's Lazio's centre back. So we've had these players. We've had these doubts. We've had players who retain themselves Lazio fan but play at Roma, and then they leave Roma, join Lazio, and go, oh fuck Roma. We've had many cases. We've had Romagnoli. We've had the new Pellegrini, which joined Lazio. He was a Roma academy player and retained himself a massive Roma fan since 2 weeks ago. He landed at the airport and went, oh, I'm a big Lazio fan. Incoherence at its max. So we've had a lot of these cases. Do I think he's a Lazio fan or he's not? I think all of those rumors which said he was a Lazio fan were fake. He's a Roma fan. He's declared himself as a Roma fan, and you are really understanding since this summer that he wants this move. And that is where the confidence grows, because when you've got a player who loves the club, who supports the club, who is just that, shows that spirit to the club, I think we should prioritize him. Similar to El Shaarawy. Look at El Shaarawy. He loves the club. He's prepared to sacrifice everything for the club, and that's why we want him to renew his contract. Similar discussion with Frattesi. If it's a player who loves the club, who loves the fans, who is ready to sacrifice money to come to Roma, who's ready to fight on that pitch and to show everyone that he's the little boy who used to play in the Roma academy team, got sold and then got back. If he wants to prove everyone that it's him, then I think, look, at the end of the day, let's give them the money. Because that's the players you want. And these are the players which we should try and buy. Roma right now lacks team spirit. Not team spirit. Roma right now lacks affection to the club, affection to the team, affection to the fans. We lack that. We've got one player, and that's Pellegrini, but this season he's been playing bad. So if you add more of these players in, the general ambience within the players improves. And I always say this when I speak about signing new players. But what I want to see in the next upcoming years is Roma buying a player who is ready to fight for the club, just like Nainggolan fought for the club a few years ago. That's the player we want to try and copy. We have to try and get a player who might not guarantee you 22 goals each season, but a player who's a fan, if you see what I mean. And I think Frattesi fulfills every criteria when it comes to that. And yes, it is true that we had him in our own backyard. Yes, it is true that we could have avoided spending 30 million on it. Yes, everything is true. But if he loves the club, if he's a Roma fan, spend the money. Now, again, I don't think it will be 30 million. I don't think it will be 30 million because one, Sassuolo managed to make the deal collapse this summer and yet keep him for yet another season. Therefore, I really think they are in a position where they need money because Sassuolo works like that. Recycle players, grow players, plant the seed, and then they sell them and make profit. They are going to ask for money, but I don't think it will be 30 million. I think the initial price will probably be around 25 million. They've already said that if we insert a player like Volpato or like Bove in the deal, the price tag could further decrease to maybe 15 million. By the way, question to everyone here. If we were in a position to get Frattesi 15 million plus you got to add a player, would you rather add? Who would you add? And would it be Volpato or Bove? Who would you rather insert in the deal to bring Frattesi home? That's my question to you. Because out of the two players, I think at the start of the season I would have kept Volpato, but seeing him grow in these past months and seeing the limited amount of minutes that he's getting compared to other academy players, I think there is something which Mourinho has discovered about Volpato which doesn't convince him. So right now, I'd go Volpato. A few months ago, this summer, I would have gone Bove. But Bove is playing way more than Volpato. So, but yeah, that's the ambience around Frattesi. I think it's ridiculous. I will never give up to say that this is ridiculous. But at the end of the day, I truly think we miss a player which is a fan. Because apart from Pellegrini and Zalewski, maybe, no one is a real fan of the team. They're good players, they fight, obviously, they're professionals, but you need a fan. And don't get me wrong, I think our midfield, needs two overall improvements. Not many, it needs two. It needs a good box-to-box / defensive mid and a good creative mid. Once you get a good box-to-box mid, potentially Frattesi, and a good creative mid to put next to Dybala if he stays, that's the midfield section complete. And then you move on to the defense and the attack and the fullbacks. And that's how it works. Speaking about another midfielder, you've probably read about Ceballos. He's a free agent this summer. I don't know. Ceballos doesn't convince me much. Ceballos doesn't convince me because he's a player who plays in a great club, probably the best club in the world, therefore brings experience, brings talent. He's a talented player. But I don't know about these players which because you see, Ceballos, like many other players, right, I feel like, and I ask myself, right, when I read the Ceballos rumours, I asked myself, when was the last time Ceballos played football? When was it? Yeah, he probably got played a few games with Real Madrid. Ceballos has basically always played as a rotational player. Ceballos has always been a rotational player. And in a team like Real Madrid, when you've got Modric, Kroos, last season you had Casemiro, this season you've got Camavinga, Valverde and Tchouaméni. When you've got all of these players, Ceballos is put in a context, where he's like, what am I supposed to do? And therefore, this decision further implies that Ceballos, when was the last time he played football? When was the last time Ceballos even played a game? So, I don't know, there's something about these players which never play, which I'm like, why do we need to get these players? Why can't other teams get them? But you see what I mean? I think he's talented. I think he's great. He's got great feet. I think he's good when it comes to creativity. But is his fitness even good? No one knows about him because he's been playing so little football lately. And that's my doubts on it. Do I think he can improve the team? He can. If he's the Ceballos which played 5 years ago, he certainly can. It doesn't. We don't need De Bruyne to massively improve the team. Even Ceballos would improve the team. But what I'm trying to say is, he's one of those players that there are many players which we've been linked with, which I ask myself, have they forgotten how to play football? Because I don't see them play much. You know, another name is which we've been linked with. Another name is Isco. Isco's great, but again, when was the last time he played football? Who did Isco play for? Seville. I mean, I don't follow Seville, so maybe he played there. But before joining Seville, right, when he was still at Real Madrid, there's something about the fitness of these players which doesn't convince me. But yeah, look, I think out of the two, Frattesi 100%. 100%. Obviously, and again, I think the bracket which we open up when it comes to the Italy national team thing is also very important when it comes to this. Buying more Italian players benefits the Italian national team. And I know we are Roma and the Italian national team is a completely different thing, but Italian teams have got one job. Italian teams have got the job to grow players for the Italian national team. And we have to try and set the example, because otherwise, forget the next World Cup when it comes to the national team. Forget it. But yeah, and look, competition does grow for Frattesi. Juventus are interested in him. At a certain point, there were lots of rumors when it comes to Frattesi, but apparently they've been denied. He's gonna have competition. He's been playing well this season. He's got good athleticism, so he can improve a lot also when it comes to playing around Gini, Matic. And yeah. But yeah, look, I will catch you soon. If you haven't already, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. It's free of cost, zero money, and it supports me a lot. So please click that red button, click that thumbs up button, and while you're there, also click the bell notification button so you'll be notified every time I go live or post a video. And yeah, tonight we've got Coppa Italia semis, Juventus against Inter. We've got Il Derby della Capitale in the first leg of the semifinals of the Coppa Italia. A tournament which we could have won, but a tournament which we've bottled. I don't know. I don't particularly like any of the two. Yeah, I guess Inter because Juve cheats, but yeah. How it goes, it goes. So yeah, I'll catch you soon. Simon, out.